Good afternoon everyone, I am Trexia Escueta, and for today's video, I will be tackling about 4 main topics which was given to us by our professor, Sir Jomi Esquivel. So let us start. For the first topic, the basic rule of rules of origin is the determination of the nationality of a particular good. This is necessary in the decision-making process of granting preferential tariff treatment on imported goods. ROO was first introduced in the Agreement on the Common Effective Preferential Tariff Scheme for the ASEAN Free Trade Area. In 2010, the agreement was superseded by the ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement. ROO is applied by ASEAN member states to determine whether goods qualify for preferential treatment under this agreement and can be granted tariff preferences. They are widely used in international trade in the application of different tariffs, trade remedy measures, tariff quotas, and trade statistics. Rules of origin are used to make more precise any aspect of trade law or trade policy that treats goods differently depending upon their country of origin and to provide criteria that distinguish between originating and non-originating goods. Rules of origin are criteria used to determine the nationality of a product. Rules of origin were designed as an uncontroversial, neutral device essential to implementing discriminatory trade policies, compiling economic statistics, and marking a good. Once the origin of a good is known, the importing country can apply any country-specific or trade area-specific trade preferences or restrictions to the imported good, such as duty-free entry for goods originating in a free trade area, quantitative restrictions on goods originating in a country subject to a quota, or anti-dumping duties on goods from the targeted company that originate in the targeted country, account for the good in its compilation of economic statistics on trade flows, and ensure that the good is conspicuously marked with its country of origin. Rules of origin remained an uncontroversial, neutral device as long as the parts of a product were manufactured and assembled primarily in one country and as long as other mechanisms for implementing protectionism existed. So next is number 2, which talks about free trade agreement. So a free trade agreement is an agreement between two or more countries where the countries agree on certain obligations that affect trade in goods and services, and protections for investors and intellectual property rights, among other topics. In the modern world, free trade policy is often implemented by means of a formal and mutual agreement of the nations involved. However, a free trade policy may simply be the absence of any trade restrictions. A government doesn't need to take specific action to promote free trade. This hands-off stance is referred to as laissez-faire trade or trade liberalization. Governments with free trade policy or agreements in place do not necessarily abandon all control of imports and exports or eliminate all protectionist policies. In modern international trade, few free trade agreements result in completely free trade. Trade is an important component of the Philippine economy. The Free Trade Agreement provides the Philippines duty-free market access for all industrial and fisheries tariff lines upon entry into force of the FTA. Philippines also secured tariff concessions on substantially all Philippines agriculture exports to EFTA. So next topic is trade remedies. So trade remedies are actions taken in response to subsidies or countervailing duties, sales at less than fair value or anti-dumping, and import surges or safeguards. The term trade remedies is usually applied to measures that governments can implement in 3 specific cases of perceived abuses in international trade in goods. These measures are provided for in 3 separate agreements of the World Trade Organization, namely the Agreements on Implementation of Article 6 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade 1994, or commonly known as the Anti-Dumping Agreement, the Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures, and the Agreement on Safeguards. First, the anti-dumping measures. The most commonly used are anti-dumping measures to counteract unfairly low prices. The WTO Agreement on Anti-Dumping deems the goods are dumped when companies export them at prices lower than those at which they sell in their home market. Dumping is not illegal in itself. It becomes illegal as soon as it results in injury to local businesses in the importing country. Therefore, in order to initiate an anti-dumping investigation, local businesses must demonstrate evidence of dumping, injury to themselves, and a causal link between the dump prices and the injury to them. Second, countervailing duties. Countervailing duties counteract subsidies by national authorities that unfairly enable their companies to export at a lower price. And lastly, for the safeguard measures. These measures do not counteract an unfair practice, but allow countries to suspend import surges temporarily in order to grant local industries time to adjust to increase foreign competition on national markets. The WTO agreement on safeguards relates to a situation where a product is being imported into a country in such increased quantities that it causes or threatens to cause serious injury to the domestic industry that produces like or directly competitive products. And the last topic is all about the general interpretative rules. A major goal of the harmonized system was to establish a global classification system that facilitated consistency and predictability in classification. However, a nomenclature covering all possible goods is invariably a complex system with multiple possibilities for classifying many goods. So, a set of rules that give a compulsory method of classification is essential to facilitate consistency and predictability. So, now let me introduce to you the 6 GIRs. Rule 1. This is the first rule to be considered in classifying any product. Most products are classified according to this rule. Rule 2A deals with the classification of unfinished, incomplete, unassembled, or disassembled goods. Rule 2B lays the groundwork for dealing with products not classifiable through the use of Rule 1 or Rule 2A, which are composed of a mixture of materials or substances. It basically states that a heading referring to a given material or substance includes mixtures of that substance with others. Rule 3A states that where two or more headings seem to apply, the one which provides the most specific description of the product in question should be used. Rule 3B applies to mixtures, composite goods, and sets that cannot be classified by use of the previous rules. Rule 3C is for use in cases in which a good seems to fit in more than one heading and the essential character cannot be determined. This is a last resort rule, most often used with new products. Rule 5 specifies how to classify containers, and Rule 5B deals with other types of containers and packing materials. Once goods have been classified to the heading level by the use of International Rules 1 to 5, then classification to the subheading level can now take place by repeating International Rules 1 to 5 and taking into account any related legal notes.